Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live Sunday, September 20th, 2015. I'm your host, Don Baker, and my co-host isn't here yet. So hopefully he'll show up in a minute. Otherwise, we have a plan B. We are coming to you from the Atheist Community of Austin.
This is Michael speaking. Can I help you?
In Austin, Texas. The Atheist Experience is a weekly live internet call-in show for the larger community to interact with atheists.
Hello?
We are streaming on YouTube and Ustream. We have video archives and a podcast of past shows on our websites. Our website is atheist-experience.com. And if you have feedback for us, you can call. You can check us out at freethoughtblogs.com/AXP or tv@atheistcommunity.org. The Atheist Experience is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, which is dedicated for the promotion of positive atheism and the separation of church and state. Their website is atheist-community.org. Check out our related podcast, The Nonprofits, which runs twice monthly on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, and the next show will be October 7th. We also have a podcast on hiatus called Godless Bitches, which is also available on our in archives. If you're in the Austin area, you're welcome to join us after the show at Threadgills in the north location, 6416 North Lamar around 6 p.m. And the group here will go over and you can come join us. I have one special announcement. We have next weekend the Bat Cruise, which is a big event for the ACA in general. We have a whole weekend of events. The cruise itself will be Saturday, September 26th at 6 p.m. It's a nice boat ride on Lady Bird Lake, ending with watching the bats emerge, and you're going to have the best view of the bats coming out from that boat. Tickets are $30 on the atheistcommunity.org, atheist-community.org website. And in addition to that, we have a lecture, a pre-cruise lecture at 2 p.m. that day by former Muslim and skeptic blogger Haina Dadaboy, and we're looking forward to having her visit, and she will be a guest on the Bat Cruise as well, so you can chat her up, and she will also be a guest on the Atheist Experience that Sunday. The lecture is at 2 p.m. on Saturday at the Trinity United Methodist Church, and there will be a number of other informal events that weekend, so it's a good time to come in. We welcome out-of-towners. You can come in and have dinner with make friends and that sort of thing. So I mentioned earlier, this is a live call-in show. We take calls via Skype, and the protocol is this. Connect to the Atheist Experience, all one word, run together, lowercase, the Atheist Experience. Text us with your name and your question, and we'll call you back when you're next to be on the air. Okay. So I understand we have a call already lined up. We have, is it Michael in San Diego?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me, Mr. Baker?
Yeah. I'm glad you're there. So what have you got for us today?
Well, I was curious. A couple months ago, back in April, May, even a bit into June, a couple of articles were circulating around the internet, basically indicating that one of the reasons Christians dislike atheism is due to the stark reminder of the finality of death. And I'm wondering what you think atheism can do to address this issue a little bit better. And I'd like to listen to your thoughts and then possibly even have a follow-up.
Okay. Well, there often is this topic of how do we market atheism and how do we make it more appealing, and this is certainly an issue where maybe we can't compete with the message that hey, you're gonna go to some happy place after you die and everything is good. I guess from our perspective, we view that as kind of wishful thinking, and that there isn't really any evidence for that sort of that belief is true. But yet, yes, people may want to cling to a comforting belief, especially this idea that they may reunite with their loved ones after they die and these sorts of things. And personally, I sort of value the truth. I value things that we can get at with evidence, and things that we're not, where we're pretty confident we're not deluding ourselves into thinking of things that might feel good but aren't necessarily true. And in a way, it's kind of a mindset that I think we want to encourage in people. I would rather have atheists in the movement and who are outspoken and such, who are atheists for the right reasons. And I'm a little concerned about marketing for marketing's sake, although it is true that there are often ways of sort of marketing the truth in a way that you can make it appealing, and you can give a sort of emotional appeals to things too. So I guess my feeling is that you might want to walk the fine line there. How does that sound?
Not too bad. I mean, the kind of thing I run into is, although granted a placebo is just sugar, there is sometimes a noticeable placebo effect that can, not always, but can have a benefit. And people like Mr. Sam Harris have touched on this, that without addressing this fear of death, we will always have this lean towards the supernatural, because, I mean, in my opinion, from a very young age, we're taught to, like Pavlov's dogs, to have an answer to every question.
Right.
So, where do you go when you pass? We got to have an answer. It may not be the right answer, and in my opinion, for most believers, it is not the right opinion, but we have to have an answer, and that answer leads us to the benefits, potentially, of that placebo effect.
Yeah. And I think people are uncomfortable not having an answer, and religion is happy to jump in and give, God did it, or whatever the answer might be.
Well, correct. I mean, the three dirtiest words in, I think, our movement, but I think they're very good words, are "we don't know."
I wouldn't call them dirty. You should be proud when you don't know, and admit it, and take that as an opportunity to learn and grow.
No, I think it's a fantastic thing. But no, seriously, if you don't know the answer, I think that's where you need to live up to the truth of your position and say, listen, I don't know. I don't know the answer. But believers take that as the dirtiest word. How can't you know you're going to paradise? How can't you know you're loved by a God? How can't you, because like I said, from very young age, because the schooling system taught to have an answer.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing wrong with saying, where do we come from? I don't know. Where do we go when we die? I don't know.
Right.
But until I will only speak for myself, until I'm given sufficient evidence that I can feel comfortable with, and that is viewable by all individuals, sufficient evidence to move me to position of there is a God, there's actually no reason to believe in that opinion.
Yeah. There's a related issue, and that is that some theists are uncomfortable with the fact that science is moving. Right, we're learning more as time goes on, and what we thought we knew at one point in time may be different at a later point in time. For example, we've recently discovered some new fossils of some hominids.
Oh yes, that was fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a big deal, and it sort of helps to shape a better understanding of our human origins. But from a theistic standpoint, it's like, oh, well, science was wrong, or science is wrong because it's changing its mind. And,
No.
And I want to hold on to religion because it's giving me a constant answer, right?
Correct. Science is modifying its position based on the evidence given to them. And I think that's a good thing. To say something was written in stone based off potentially a book that we don't even know who is written by. Um, I, I just think it backs you into a corner.
Yeah.
There's no room to modify your position because how are you supposed to challenge the supposed mind of God? I mean, it's just it, it's kind of it is a fantastic story. It's interesting, but once again, it's not based on I don't think any good proof. And what if you do find evidence that would shake the foundations of what you had hoped was written in stone?
Yeah.
But then that's when you see apologists start to do the dance. Well, it means this. It doesn't mean that.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Right.
what is your barometer to test your position? You don't have one because you don't have evidence to the core of your belief.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gives them wiggle room to pull anything they want out of the hat, which is just unfortunate, but it's something we have to deal with.
Yeah, that's one of my frustrations with the Bible and such is that it's setting aside the question of truth or not. It's subject to a lot of interpretation because it's wisps of stories that where you're required to bring a lot to it yourself and read into it what it means and these sorts of things. And if you look at the fact that there are tens of thousands of branches of Christianity, they're all disagreeing on how different interpretations and many of them core theological interpretations. You come away with, oh well, this is a Rorschach test of some sort, and people are just reading into it what they want to.
Correct. My favorite one is that when the fundamentalist apologists are saying, well, God cannot do evil. How do you know?
Right.
I mean, why, if he can do anything and everything, I mean, if we use kind of like the basic omnipotent, omniscient, omnipotent definition of a God, well, how do you know he can't do evil? Just saying, well, God's good doesn't mean anything, especially when our only connection to the God opinion is the Bible. And the Bible doesn't have a single consistent message. I don't care how you read it. I don't care if you read it in context, out of context. I don't care if you read it, chapter here, chapter there, or beginning and completely through. If I want to love my fellow man, yeah, not a problem. I can find a passage that will say, yes, love your fellow man and all fellow men.
Yeah.
But if I want to go out and, let me be blunt. If I actually wanted to go out, and I do not, if I wanted to go out and slaughter a homosexual, I can quote you chapter and verse.
Sure.
And so to sit there and say that God is the ultimate moral figure and has a consistent moral standard, well, I'll tell you what, even if he did, God is the worst communicator on the planet. I mean, let's face it. If I can, in his supposedly error-free, divinely inspired Word of God, write such a mess, I just don't see how people can say there's a consistent message to it.
Sure.
Without knowing that they are, full of themselves.
Yeah, and Thomas Paine made this point in The Age of Reason about 200 and some odd years ago, and he made it very eloquently, and I highly recommend folks check that out and get into the mind of an atheist, or actually he was a deist, but he certainly argued that a God would never use a written communication as a way of conveying a message. And he did so very eloquently, and I really admire that thought process and his guts for going after that question.
Yes, and I believe your co-host, Mr. Dillahunty, has even mentioned that too. I mean, what is the worst way you can give your divine message is through languages that have died thousands of years ago, and just a complete lack of decent historical record keeping on what someone would say is the most important person to ever walk the planet. I just think is hilarious.
Yep.
I saw a debate between Dr. Richard Carrier and forgive me, I forget the Christian apologist's name, but I asked him, I said, how do you account for the lack of record keeping for what a Christian would say is the most important being to ever walk the earth? And his excuse was, well, back then paper was hard to get. I'm paraphrasing. I am paraphrasing.
Well, paper was hard to get, but that's a lame excuse, isn't it?
Well, think about if you think about their position, they basically say, well, this was my apologies. I was actually corrected, and the person thought it was cute, but I'll go with the correction. This is the one and only time the one and only God walked the earth. Could walk on water, water into wine, all these miracles. Supposedly brought the dead back to life. Supposedly himself came back to life. But you want to know something? Obtaining a piece of papyrus was too hard to do.
Right.
And that just floored me. I said, that's it. He could do all this amazing stuff that you say through your studies, is absolutely true. He was surrounded by 12 men. You think one of the ones he would have picked would have been a scholar that had access to paper.
Mm-hmm.
And, the incompetence of their God is beyond me.
Right.
It's just, it's error after poor judgment after poor judgment. And I just don't understand, with such a lack of evidence, why they need it. And that kind of goes back to why I originally called. Once again, I think it is just this stark reminder that, sadly, this is your one and only time on the roller coaster.
Yep.
And it's going to be a fun ride, and I hope it is for most people. I think part of it is, too, is they are looking for, a lot of people, I think, are looking for a reward for a mediocre life. It's a shame we are in such a big system where most people get up in the morning, go to work, come home, have dinner, watch a little TV, and go to bed, and repeat it day after day after day, and their lives aren't really amazing or something that they really get a lot out of. And I think they're going, well, you know what, if I can just get through this, if I can just get through these 80 years of just monotony, there'll be cookies and candy waiting for me.
Right. Well, and we're living in a pretty decent time. A lot of folks have a lot of comforts that they didn't have 50
Correct.
or 100 or 1,000 years ago.
But even with these comforts, I think there's this sometimes of a mindset of, and once again, I think this is the believer's mindset. This is nice and all, but there's something better coming.
Yeah.
And, it's unfortunately they get stuck in that mentality. But, sir, I have taken up a tremendous amount of your time. I'd like to thank you for taking...
Sure. Well, I appreciate your call.
Question. What I have to ask, you're alone there. You got ditched.
I'm alone. Well, I've got a pal that is just coming in right now to help me out.
Hello, pal.
John Iacoletti. So...
it's kind of funny you say that, and there's delay, of course, on the video to our conversation. I'm thinking, a magical friend.
A magical friend. So thank you very much, Michael.
Hey, thanks. I
appreciate your call.
Real quick. I like the new studio. I like the new format, and the quality has been, I think, greatly improved. I know your team had some bumps in the beginning, but I think they should stick with it. I like it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, we appreciate the feedback on the technical issues. We have had, it's a challenge to get the show like this kind of all the kinks worked out because it's a lot of moving parts and such. So please queue up Cody, if you would, in the control room. Hey, John.
Hey.
You're my buddy. Thanks for coming and helping out today.
Yeah, we're not sure what happened to Martin. Hopefully he's okay, and you all get me instead.
Right. We can chew him out later for not showing up. Right. So, and you did the show last week.
I did with Tracy, and that was fun.
Okay. As Tracy's always a lot of fun.
Yeah. She is. It was a good show.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Glad to help out. Just shout out to Martin. Hope you're doing all right, buddy.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting for Cody, did you know of anything that in the news that maybe struck your fancy in the last little bit here?
Oh gosh, we kind of covered Kim Davis last week, and I'm trying to think of what's happened.
She's had more than her 15 minutes of fame, hasn't she?
Yeah, I think so. Boy, I'll have to.
We've had people going after Planned Parenthood, which is very frustrating.
Yeah, they're going to shut down the government again over Planned Parenthood. I put something up on Facebook. I've been seeing these bumper stickers around that have the stop sign, and it says "Stop Planned Parenthood." And I put that on my Facebook wall, and I said, yeah, because unplanned parenthood is so much better.
Right. Yeah, those folks prevent more abortions through contraceptive use and education and these sorts of things than they do. So, good grief. What are we going to replace that with?
Yeah, I think it's something like 3% of what they do is abortions in places where it's legal. The government doesn't fund that at all.
Right.
I used to teach sex education for several years, and Planned Parenthood was always really helpful to us. They would come to our classes and they would present a lot of good information about contraception and about sexually transmitted infections, and give us charts and posters and handouts and demonstration material, and it was all free. We would give them a little donation, but they did it, and they were glad to do it, because that's the thing, is get the information out there.
So I think they're being vilified unnecessarily. Well, we have Cody from Tyler on the line. Cody, what do you got?
Hey, what's going on? Just wanted to call in. I know my topic was I'm talking with a friend, and he says that I must believe in God because of all the evil in the world. And I've been going back and forth with him on this, and I just wanted to kind of get y'all's input and thoughts behind it, because I've given him some points, and he seems to be thinking about it, but not fully. He keeps bringing up other points that I see that are flawed, but he doesn't.
Yeah. Well, that strikes me as like the first caller, is more wishful thinking. It's a comforting idea that maybe the people who are perpetrating bad things will be judged and properly punished down the road. But the reality is we have to do that ourselves. And I guess I should warn you not to get in the mindset that you can necessarily talk somebody out of their religious beliefs, because I think the thing you should strive for is planting lots of seeds of doubt, and hopefully they'll germinate. But it's often a long process for people to change their minds. John, did you want to add?
I think that's kind of a strange argument to begin with. I mean, usually you hear it the other way. It's the problem of evil. Well, how can there be a God if there's evil in the world? So I'm not quite sure. There's evil in the world, therefore there must be a God. Doesn't quite parse for me.
Well, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to answer that question of that, atheists, or like somebody will come at them and say, how can there be a God with evil in the world? And so his response is, I have to believe in a God because there is evil in the world. And so, he goes through all these things that
contortions.
He's saying that because there is evil, there is a God.
So he wants to believe that there's some kind of justice, ultimate justice for people who commit evil, therefore...
Right. He's wanting to say that because the standard of good and evil, you can't have evil without good, and therefore if there's evil, there is good, and which proves that there is a God.
That's the giant leap.
Yeah, that's pretty convoluted.
That's the giant blackboard that's got the big equation on one side, and then a miracle happens, and then therefore God. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't. I mean, so you don't think that logic is there's no logic to that at all?
I just don't see how one follows from the other, I guess. There's evil.
Well, because the standard of that, you can't have evil, like, because good and evil exist with each other, like, you can't have the standard of evil without the standard of good. I mean, do you agree with that?
See, the problem that you're in is you're sort of already sort of buying into a
Right.
lot of terms and.
Right, I know those are loose terms.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where things are going off the rails. If you think that good and evil are these sort of mystical qualities that are emergent from some god or whatever, then you're sort of playing into their hand. But if you sort of say, well, there's harm in the world, and there are humans have propensity to cause others harm, or they may not care, or they may not have empathy, these sorts of things. If you take it out of the supernatural realm, then I think you can maybe have a more productive discussion. There's disease out there, and there's the Ebola, or there's all sorts of horrible things, earthquakes, tidal waves, all these things, but none of that needs to have a god. So in a way, you're ceding too much ground, perhaps. The argument is kind of a special pleading for there being a god, but you really ought to back up and say, well, what evidence do we have for a god? This is all sort of post hoc rationalization is really what's going on there.
Right, but I mean, if I take that stance, I mean, he's obviously going to shut down. I'm trying to meet him on his ground.
Yeah.
So that, I'm willing to, I think I can, show him flaws even with this logic that he's confident that is right. Do you kind of get where I'm going?
Sure. Well, what you're sort of, one of the things you might do is go after the divine command argument, or the divine command issue, and maybe point out some of the sort of evil things that God has, allegedly done or allegedly encouraged people to do, and say, hey, is this good or is this evil? And you can almost get to the Euthyphro's dilemma. If it's something that he said that is evil, then he must be evil or whatever, or are you going to take the standpoint of if he said it has to be good, and then you can tie your opponent up in knots with that, I'm sure.
Right, and he posted an article by John Piper. I don't know if y'all know that author, or anyways.
I don't, sorry.
And so I kind of did confront him with that, and what that goes on to say is that essentially admitting that God did create evil, but
it says as much in the Bible at one point, right?
Okay, and so, but it's proof. I mean, it's God. It's tough to say that God did create evil, but they're saying that God is still a righteous and glorious God, but he's the creator of evil, which kind of threw me for a loop.
Right. And I think that theists often, when they're sort of confronted with all this, is they sort of give up and say, well, I cannot understand God's mysterious ways and these sorts of things, and they sort of punt. Whereas the atheist would sort of want to run it to its logical conclusion.
Right.
Like, why would a righteous, all good God create evil to begin with? For what purpose?
Right.
Cool.
So
all right, well,
I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no. I mean, you kind of helped me walk through my logic. I just wanted to be sure that I was kind of going down the right path.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Sure. Take care, Cody.
Thanks, Cody.
You too. Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck with your friends and such. If you can have a pleasant conversation, make it fun and interesting, and have a few jokes, goes pretty far, I'd say.
Yeah, it just depends. Some people are more willing to kind of have the discussion and follow the logical progression, and some people aren't.
Let's cue up JJ from Palm Springs, please.
Now, I have heard the argument that, well, how can you even know something is good without there being a God to set the standard for what's good? And I think that's a flawed argument as well.
Yeah.
Not just because of the Euthyphro dilemma, but it's like you were saying, it's backwards. It's you want to demonstrate something is real first before you go about talking about what it does
Its
or what
properties and such. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty important.
And it's kind of a leap too. You're making the assumption that there can be no standards without some supernatural being deciding what they are. And we make standards by consensus all the time in human civilizations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we have JJ from Palm Springs on the line. Hello, JJ.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Hi.
John.
Don and John.
How did John? I've got an echo and I don't know how to cure it. Sorry.
You have a what?
An echo and okay.
Oh,
it's
okay.
fine. Anyway, yeah, I called. This is great. I wanted to kind of. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. The fact that government has been and is currently supporting religious bigotry. And by religious bigotry, I mean bigotry towards anyone who does not believe in God. And it's just evident in so many ways.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my government. This is like my elected leaders, the president. I mean, Bush. I can't. He just went beyond bizarre. You know, I cannot understand. He said, how anyone can be an American and not believe in God. I mean,
this is the first Bush said something like that, right?
No, that was Bush the son.
Okay.
Oh, I wasn't aware of
Yeah.
that.
I don't remember that, but yeah, there is a lot of that. There's a lot of sort of, especially during the Cold War, there was a lot of church-state separation violations that really got entrenched, like the motto and the Pledge of Allegiance and National Day of Prayer was another one. There's quite a few more. Billy Graham, we can blame Billy Graham for a lot of that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've been reading some history about that. I forgot the guy who wrote it, but he wrote a great book on how that all got entrenched, the idea of this being a Christian country, which it never was. It isn't.
Yeah, it's kind of a propaganda idea to distinguish ourselves from those evil Ruskies, the pink scare and all that, which seems so silly today to me. The whole pink thing just is nuts.
It is. What bugs me and what has been just gnawing on me more and more is the fact that it's continuing. The politicians continue to say, God bless America, which the only thing that means is I'm a member of the club. And
yeah, a lot of this is political sops where they're pandering to various religious groups and saying, I'm one of your tribe, that sort of thing. And I think that the tide is slowly turning where atheists are becoming more visible and the percentage of religious people is dropping in the United States. And I think that just because we are starting to have more visible power and have kind of sensible requests and demands, I think, of the government to treat us well, treat us like everybody else. I think that we will continue to make inroads there. Some of these entrenched things like the motto, I don't see that going away anytime soon. Although I'd love to go back to the old one because I like the old one so much better.
what was that?
E pluribus unum, which is Latin for out of many one, and it sort of reflects the melting pot idea of the United States, being from lots of different cultures and things, and I love that one.
It's much more inclusive. And I agree about the pandering thing. When you have 85% of the populace, or depending on what numbers you look at, who believe in a God, and you're a politician and you want votes, you're going to try to appeal to the biggest
Yeah.
demographic you can. So I think that's what a lot of that is. You'd have to have politicians stand up and vote against, getting God out of the motto, and they're just not going to do that. That's political suicide, even if they agree.
Yep.
Well,
So we have a
what
lot
I-
of work
what
yet
I-
to do.
Yeah, what I wanted to more or less just speak about was the fact that it's a promoted religious bigotry. I think we all suffer from bigotry, whether it's based on skin color, body shape, how you look, what country, where you're from, gender, sexual orientation. I read somewhere, even people of color, they are actually brought to view themselves as somehow less than because of just that's the common view. And the common view for people who are atheists is you're not as good as someone who believes in God just because you don't believe in God.
Well,
it's-
yeah.
It just
The argument often is you don't have a moral compass because you don't know right from wrong, or whatever. There's various little sub-arguments there, and I do agree with you that we do have a lot of biases and such that we sort of pick up from the culture and such, and trying to be aware of that and trying to give that the law, the evil eye, the sense of reason is a good thing. The self-examination is a good thing.
what I'm thinking is that it's very easily for anyone coming to the belief that no, there's no proof, it's not real, it's obviously fantasy. There is no deity. No matter what you call it, there is no deity. It's very easy for someone like me to see myself as bad, as less than. I can never possibly be as good as someone who believes in a deity. Like Christians, they're number one. They've got the right deity. Then there's the Jews. Their deity is not really quite it, but they believe in God. And we'll even include Muslims in there. They've got a deity. It's all wrong, but they believe in God, so they're okay. And then there's the atheists. The atheists suck, man. They're evil.
Yeah.
Never vote for an atheist. They'll destroy the country.
Well, there's something even more insidious, I think, and that is that when I go to maybe address the government on a grievance or something, and there's a prayer going on, I'm going to get the subliminal message that hey, I'm kind of an outsider. Whether or not I'm good or bad, I might have a good foundation on that I'm not going to buy into. But just being sort of an outsider to our own government is not a good thing, and something that we should definitely address.
Some of the organizations I've seen out there, supporting atheists, have made the statement or presented the idea: just sit down. Sit down. When you're ever in the position where the Pledge of Allegiance starts, just sit down. And problem is, I'm never in that position to do it.
Right. Well, and then there's this issue of do you want to be seen as not being patriotic, right? Because it's all conflated, and it's all kind of this emotional, you've got to be part of the tribe sort of thing. Another maybe passive aggressive thing you can do is when you do the pledge, just skip the under God part and just keep on going. Do the original one.
The original words. I've done that before.
Have you? I've thought of, like, if I was ever into a position, because it's right before there's a pause. One nation, it gives you time to say, not.
Oh, okay. Not under God. Okay. Yeah. Well, God, this religion stuff is very divisive, and sticking that right in the middle of the pledge and the motto, and it's just terrible stuff.
Yeah, I don't understand how they can get away with. It's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional to say in God we trust, besides it being a lie. It's a lie. It's not true.
Right.
Some.
Well, the
some.
laws are on our side. We just need to get the wheels turned the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long road, and we just got to hang in there. You're right. You're right.
All right, JJ. Well, thank you for your call.
Thank you for taking it.
All right.
Hey, hang in there. Keep
Thanks.
doing it.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Bye. Let's queue up Shelly from Northern New York next, please. So what other Cold War things are we still stuck with? Can you think of some others?
Yeah, I was trying to think as you were going through the list. It was, in God we trust on the money,
Right.
the national motto, Pledge of Allegiance. That kind of covers it. I mean,
Well, the National Day of Prayer, right,
Okay.
was done.
I know the Ten Commandments monument started springing up shortly after that time.
Believe it or not, that was kind of tied to the Ten Commandments movie. They actually did that as kind of an advertising gimmick with the Eagles and such, and
Okay.
that's how Texas got theirs.
So it was,
And the argument was, oh well, we have this juvenile delinquency problem, and if we only had a moral code for people. Isn't that lame?
if they see it on the, if they see this thing on the Capitol lawn, they won't go out and be juvenile delinquents. I guess. It's like
Right. And the big irony there is like, okay, let's break the First Amendment of the Constitution. Let's break one of the biggest laws by putting this religious thing on government property as a way of supposedly inculcating morals. Right? Isn't that crazy? Okay, we got Shelly from Northern New York on.
Yep.
Hey, Shelly.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't have the video on because my computer decided to blue screen right before I came on.
Oh no.
Oh, uh-oh.
So it's kind of funny you guys mentioned Planned Parenthood earlier because that was kind of my topic.
Okay.
So I came across an article, and I'm pro-choice, but I came across the article is kind of satirical of like why we should defund Planned Parenthood because they talk about vaginas there and it's gross, and it was kind of funny, and I shared it on Twitter, and of course that got me involved into a debate
Big battle, right?
with
Yeah, unfortunately, there's too much emotion.
and I could always maybe read part of the thread if you wanted to kind of give my background, but
Oh, I was just saying. I was just saying
if
that
you guys had any like advice or like really good arguments to like deal with them and like shut down their arguments.
I don't know. I think both sides end up talking past each other. I would like to reframe it personally. I would like to talk about who's going to be responsible for the child, and I think we need to answer that sort of question first, right? And if you're not willing to be the one responsible for the child, maybe you should stay out of the decision.
Right.
So that's my take on it. Let's have a conversation about that, and what can we do? What can we, reducing abortion, I think is a worthy goal, and that might be a way of making a bridge between those who are so-called pro-life, and we're doing a really crappy job of that. I think if you look at other countries and the methods they have done. There are lots of countries in Europe with very liberal abortion laws that have much lower rates than we do. Mm-hmm. And we could be there too with education and with changing the culture a little bit and having more of a safety net for people. There are lots of things that we could do. And it seems like the folks who are mostly associated with the sort of pro-life side tend to be Republicans, and they tend to be, these that are very squeamish about sex ed, and they're very squeamish about, any sort of public funding of contraceptives, and they're very squeamish about, health care for people who are, maybe indigent or who need it, these sorts of things. And we've had a lot of fights here in Texas even on that issue. So we're kind of in a bad spot, and I hate to say this, but this is probably going to be the main cultural war thing for the next couple of years because the gay marriage thing is pretty much a done deal. I don't think, there's screaming and yelling going on, but it's not amounting to anything. So I think that this is going to be the main thing, and I think that those who are concerned about this ought to get more involved, because I think this is a pretty important issue.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's another element
Forgot
too.
what I was going to say.
I think there's another element that whether they admit it or not, there's a big element of sexual shame going on. It's
Oh yeah.
it's
Oh yeah.
I want you to bear the burden of the consequences of your immoral
Yep.
behavior, and so the carrying the baby to term becomes a punishment for your immorality rather than
Right.
looking at it as, okay, who's going to take care of this child? I think that's a
agree.
huge part of it.
And that's a crappy way of running things.
Yeah, it's ridiculously frustrating that when it comes to Planned Parenthood, they're only focusing on the abortion side of it when that's only a small part, and like the videos that popped up were already proven to be highly doctored, and
Yes. Yeah, it's like a modern day witch hunt of some
Yep.
sort. It's a kangaroo trial on this sort of thing. And Ted Cruz in his speech at the Republican debate just was spewing all sorts of lies about this as a way of advancing himself. I think a lot of folks see through him, but it's just sad that this has become kind of a means to advance the agenda of people who are
want to control the women.
want to control women and are happy to do it by any unscrupulous means. It's just terrible. So
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's this prevent abortion through any means possible. So we're in this position where we can't outlaw it outright. So let's make it as difficult as we can for people to get
Yeah.
legal abortion. So we're gonna pass all of these laws, saying the clinics have to jump through all these hoops so that no
Yeah.
clinic can do it, and we're not going to give any government funding to it, and we're
waiting periods and all these things.
yeah,
right?
we're going to make doctors do sonograms and show it to the patient and wait 24 hours. It's
Yeah.
so that people, it will be such a hassle for people that they will give up and not do it. And they admit that. They say we want to make it as difficult as possible,
Yeah.
and for you to exercise your legal rights.
Well, it's been sort of proven. The Guttmacher Institute has done studies, and they have concluded that passing laws and making things more difficult is not necessarily something that changes the rates of abortion.
Right.
But what it does do is it makes abortions more dangerous for women.
Right.
So that's terrible.
You'd think if they wanted to not have abortions, they would be okay with the contraception and stuff that Planned Parenthood provides, but nope, we're gonna focus on this fake information and try to stop you all with this really bad scientific logic, because they all think that a 6-week-old fetus is the same as a baby, and so it's infanticide, and
Yeah.
it hurts my brain trying to, because
Right.
I'll argue back and forth and try to prove my point, and they just don't get it, or they put words in my mouth, or
Yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
those things like Don.
why do you hate science? I don't. You do apparently, though.
It's one of those things like Don was saying, that people end up talking past each other because they're opposed to it, and it's not a rational. They came to that conclusion by examining all the facts. It's they're against it, and it's immoral, and God said it, and I believe it, and that settles it. So you really can't reason somebody out of a position that wasn't
Yeah.
gained through reason.
Yeah. And once they've sort of decided it's baby killing, it's very hard to sort of argue with that, because it's very sort of emotional at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do the best you can to make it a sort of a reasoned conversation. With our friends and these sorts of things. I think that's about the only thing that we can do at this point. change the topic a little bit to responsibility instead of, who's
So
going
much harder to do on Twitter when you only have like 180 characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's really ironic that the people who kind of wrap up their position on their religious beliefs don't seem to have any problem lying in order to prevent this from happening when lying is against their religious beliefs as well. So it's one of those.
Do you have an example of that, John?
Well, like you were saying, Ted Cruz getting up there and just telling all these lies about what Planned Parenthood is doing. Well, what about bearing false witness, Ted?
Right.
How Christian are you?
Right.
But it really is by any means necessary. So if I have to lie to stop this from happening, then it's
justified.
acceptable.
Yeah. The means justify the end.
Yeah.
Or the ends justify the means. Sorry.
There's just this one example where like even their reading comprehension tends to be really flawed. Like they were saying fetus is Latin for unborn mammal, to which I continue, more than 8 weeks after conception. So within the first month or so, it doesn't really count. And then they responded with, so is it a puppy between conception and fetus? Stop being dishonest. And it's just like, but at conception it has, it's nothing more than a fertilized egg. So what grows depends on the DNA.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, so, when has a human never given birth to a puppy? I'm like, that's not what I said at all.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
understand.
That's called a straw man.
Yeah. So we're sorry. We empathize with you, and I think that America would be a better country if we could have a real debate about this instead of an emotional yelling war.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
Anything else, Shelly?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I end up watching the show quite a bit, like on YouTube or whatever, because I end up always getting frustrated at some sort of religious argument, like the whole Satanist statue a month or so ago.
Oh, right.
So I wanted to actually like call in for once and be like, what do you guys think I can do better here? That kind of thing.
I think you're doing great. Just keep it up. But sometimes you just kind of have to beat your head against the wall and move on to something else.
Yeah.
That works.
All right. Well, thank you for your call, Shelly.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Let's pick Ian next from West Palm Beach, Florida.
Seem to be having a little more luck with the Skype this week than
Yeah.
last
yeah,
week.
It's working out. We got a
had some
queue of
hiccups.
callers.
Yeah.
What other arguments do we have kind of in the public sphere that are just too emotional? The gun thing is another one that's just so emotional, and we're not even having any real conversation there. What else have we got?
Yeah.
I don't want to get too off topic.
Yeah, it seems like most political issues are kind of fall into that category where people just get firmly entrenched in what it is they believe and don't talk rationally about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Healthcare, gun control.
Healthcare seems to be another one.
Civil rights was like that, in the early '60s, and people would have knockdown dragouts about that. Then, they don't so much anymore. So I think
There's hope.
Yeah, I think as we progress, people find other things to get firmly entrenched about that maybe weren't the case 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, gay marriage will be like that in 50 years. It'll just be like, oh yeah, we fought about that back then. Isn't that strange history?
Well, I think we're rapidly moving to where it's a kind of a ho-hum thing. It's like, okay, well, people are getting married, and it's like, well, that's just normal. Yeah. We're getting there. So that I'm actually kind of pleased, just in my lifetime, how rapidly that whole thing has changed. So when I was a kid, it was before the Stonewall riots, and gays were an anathema, and to be persecuted, and freaks and these sorts of things. And now it's it's pretty normal and pretty accepted, and nobody cares, which is kind of a nice place to be.
Yeah.
So we didn't get an answer with Ian. Any of the other callers is fine. Maybe Alec from Sunderland, Massachusetts. MA, right?
Yeah. Sorry about that, Ian.
Yeah.
We can try again.
So yeah, our mechanism's a little clumsy. We have to call you, and we only have one way to do that. And you know, down the road we may get a proper phone system, but it's expensive, and you know, we're a nonprofit organization, and that's maybe not something where we want to spend our money necessarily.
Yeah. We're looking at solutions to do voice over IP and have a box with multiple lines like we did in the old studio. So we're looking at ways of doing that don't cost too much, but you know, we're always accepting donations if you want to get on the website and help with the cause.
Yeah. Okay, we've got Alex from Sunderland, Massachusetts on. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Don. Hi, John. I don't know if you guys realize this is my third time calling, and I've talked to each of you before.
Okay.
We're sorry.
Anyway, I wanted to comment on something the first caller said first about God being a lousy communicator.
Yeah.
Something that always kills me is that you talk to Christians and they'll say, well, I talk to God every day by praying to him or something. And my response to that is, well, you know, if God talked to anybody, he might have talked to Paul, who wrote a huge portion of the Bible. And if he had just told Paul that Paul was writing the Bible instead of these letters to Rome and Corinth and place, I mean, that would have saved so many headaches for so many Bible scholars.
Well, you know, yeah, there's lots of little arguments you can make there. You know,
Oh, yeah.
God could have done so many things better.
He did seem to talk directly to people a lot more back then. He talked to Noah and he talked to, you know, Moses and
Right. He seems to fade out.
Yeah,
right?
he doesn't.
There's a lot of one-on-one interaction very early on, and a lot of, you know.
More people on the earth who maybe didn't have time anymore, but.
Right. Maybe he's getting diluted out or something.
Okay. That was just kind of a side. The major topic I wanted to mention was this guy in Ohio who might have happened earlier this week, might have happened last week, but apparently he was promoting this movie Audacity by Ray Comfort, and he was actually, you know, mentioned it to apparently at least 2 women who were lesbians, and, you know, told them, hey, you should really watch this. Have you guys seen it?
I haven't seen it. I understand it has a kind of a
It's very preachy.
Anti-homosexual theme. Is that right?
Yeah, very.
I don't know much about it beyond that. Ray Comfort's a kind of self-promoting atheist apologist.
Okay, this is a quote from Ray Comfort. But Audacity was produced particularly to show that Christians don't hate homosexuals. I mean, if he has to say that about the movie, think about what the movie is like.
Right. Well, there's this sort of funny and amusing predicament that Christians are in right now, and that is, you know, we've gone from having no gay marriage to having gay marriage, and now all of a sudden, you know, gay people are sort of normal now, and they sort of have all the rights that everybody else has, right? And now they're in this predicament where if they speak out against gays, then they look like bigots. And from our perspective, they are, but they aren't very uncomfortable with that idea. And so that may be the contortions that this movie is going through. At least that seems to be the sense of that quote that you just read.
Okay. Well, anybody, my real point is that this guy, I mean, first he told one woman, and she reported him to a manager or somebody. I'm not, the report wasn't, the article I read about it wasn't completely clear. But then he got called into an office and told, look, don't do this. and his
Oh, he was
response.
being in the face of customers in an establishment or something?
No, this is just I forget what the workplace was. It's in here someplace, but
So they were coworkers, and he was
they're just
doing
coworkers.
this, and he was doing this at work. Okay.
Yeah.
I
no,
understand.
actually, apparently he was talking to her outside work when he mentioned this.
Oh.
But anyway, this first woman did talk to a manager, and the manager said to him, "Please stop doing this." And his response was, he couldn't stop sharing the faith. And the manager said, "It's not about faith. This is about making your coworker uncomfortable."
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, he apparently did the same thing with another woman.
Okay.
And have you guys seen anything by Ray Comfort?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, he's actually been on the show before.
Oh, right. But
we
that
did
wasn't you guys. That was Matt and Russell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
But I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
yeah. He's pretty preachy.
Sure. And he's welcome to his opinion, and he's welcome to use his free speech rights and these sorts of things.
Yeah. When it's a movie, but I mean, this guy is going around recommending a movie that was produced by Ray Comfort, which is pretty preachy and pretty proselytizing. And you couldn't
Yeah,
get
well, I think it matters a lot how that's done. I mean, if you want to recommend a movie to a coworker, then you can mention it, and if they're not interested, they can say I'm not interested, and then it should be pretty much over at that point.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Okay, but this movie isn't quite as clear what it's about. I mean, it kind of sneaks up on you what's really going on, because I mean, it's a real story. There are actors and a storyline to it.
Well, a lot of this Christian apologetic stuff has had very, very low production quality, and I can think of all sorts of movies promoting
No, this is a pretty high
creationism and these sorts
production.
of things. Yeah. So this is maybe a more serious one. I know it's available on the internet. If folks want to check it out and look at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like God's Not Dead. It's not that high production quality, but I mean, it's better than Ray Comfort's usual stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's welcome to produce stuff, and we're welcome to criticize it. And
yeah, but people shouldn't be going around work
sure
promoting it,
Sure.
especially when they get a warning. Don't do this.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a little tricky, I think. I'm not being familiar with the story, but if he's doing it outside of work, I'm a little uncomfortable with the boss intervening there. If it's at work, that's clear. That's harassment, workplace
He only
harassment.
knew the woman through work.
Yeah.
It-
But in any case, I find that a lot of times Christians, especially because in this country they're the majority, think that they're kind of exempt from otherwise applicable rules and laws. If I'm the county clerk and I don't want to issue this license, well, I'm Christian, so I don't have to. But
If they're Muslim,
if
boy,
a Muslim,
watch out.
if a Muslim did something, then that would be different. And I see that here as well. The person thinks that spreading his faith is more important than workplace decorum. So
Yeah.
people like that need to be disciplined appropriately, I guess.
Yeah.
Apparently, the guy does. He says he can't stop sharing his faith, and apparently he has commented about his faith quite a bit at the workplace, and they just thought this was one step too far. It is a fine line to draw.
Yeah, well, I'd hate to be a manager in that sort of situation, because it is a delicate sort of situation, and you do want to make the workplace a productive and safe and comfortable place for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you for your call, Alec.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say, there's sexual harassment, and we kind of know what that is, and that includes, pursuit outside the workplace. And to me, this was like religious harassment.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would agree, and especially if the person said, "Please don't,
Yeah.
pursue this," or these sorts of things.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Alec.
Let's cue up Shafiq from Montreal next, please. So, have you had any, issues in your workplace from, on being an atheist, or do people know?
No, it really never comes up. People don't discuss religion or politics at work.
Okay.
At least not,
So it's a kind
not
of
in
a
circles I run in. People do their job, and
very professional sort of.
yeah, it's one of those things you just don't go there at work.
Yeah. I sort of have the opposite problem. I have a lot of coworkers who are atheists, and I personally would rather not make religion a topic of conversation at work for fear that I'll step on someone's toes. So I don't actually talk about that very much at work. Although, if it weren't work, I would, love to unpack that and explore that with these various folks. So it's a little bit awkward, and it's something I want to talk about, but, trying to be professional and trying not to.
Yeah.
Because I do have some theistic coworkers that I admire, and they're great people. I like working with them and all that. So
Yeah.
I don't want to step on any toes.
I would just rather keep that out of the workplace. It's not really relevant.
Right.
Occasionally somebody will, in their little signature line on an email, they'll have a Bible quote or something like that. But that's not getting in somebody's face.
Yeah.
Or they might,
It's maybe a gray area. But
Yeah, I don't really have a big issue with that. If they come into my office and try to preach to me, that would be a completely different thing. But
yeah, when I was much younger, I worked in a job where somebody found out I was gay, and then they brought me a whole bunch of chick tracts to try to convert me. And I at the time I didn't know what the heck was going on, but looking at it in hindsight, it's kind of funny. That was my introduction to chick tracts.
thinking that would change everything if you
change
just
everything,
read
right.
the chick tract. Okay.
Right.
Well, hope springs eternal.
Right.
My kids one year got, when they were little, they were trick-or-treating in one of the houses. Instead of giving out candy, was giving out chick tracts.
Oh, creepy.
Saying how
right.
evil Halloween is, and that's just...
Oh, yeah, that's an evil holiday, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody loves it. What a bunch of irony. So we're waiting on the next caller to get queued up. If you are in the Austin area, please come join us at the Threadgill's North location, and I can give that address here.
North Lamar somewhere.
Yeah, it is at 6416 North Lamar, and we're going to try to get there around 6 p.m. We're going to kind of wrap up here and head on over, and we've already got a handful of folks in the audience who will be there. Will you be going?
I'll be going.
Awesome.
And having a Mexican martini.
Okay, that's a good thing.
And a reminder that the Bat Cruise, another reminder the Bat Cruise is next weekend. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I know Don mentioned it earlier, but
we usually have 100 or so people or more coming.
yeah, and get your reservations in early so you make sure you get a spot.
Yep.
There's still space available.
Okay. Well, we have Shafiq on the line. Is that your name, Shafiq?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, welcome. You're from Montreal, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Don and John. So I don't know if you read my question there.
Should we move away from the discussion about the missing link on evolution?
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think that's an old argument that never really got a whole lot of traction. So this gets into the idea of transitional fossils and whether there's enough fossil evidence to support evolution. Well, fossils are few and far between, and sometimes we find a lot of them, and sometimes we don't, and sometimes we, have gaps. But a much stronger evidence for evolution is the DNA genetic evidence, and in effect, that we can use DNA as a way of sort of looking back in time and seeing when things branched off and these sorts of things, and that gives us much stronger confirmation of evolutionary theory and a mechanism by which it happens. So Darwin didn't know anything about DNA when he was writing, and he was sort of speculating that, hey, there must be something going on here. And it turned out he was mostly right about it. But since then we have all this great evidence. Things like there's a lot of evidence related to places on the Earth that are isolated and how evolution behaves there differently than in larger populations where you get population breaks or islands or these sorts of things. Anyway, so there's lots of different aspects to evolution, and this whole missing link thing is rather silly. There is no the missing link.
Yeah, I mean, not just that. Experimental science, by its very nature, is not absolute. So there will always be that one missing link for them to point to, right?
Yeah, and you can be very cynical and say, well, if we find a fossil in between two, then we've created two more missing links.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a silly sort of argument, because there will always be some sort of gap that isn't completely explained, and but the evidence taken as a whole is very impressive, and we've never found rabbits in the Cambrian, for example, as I forget who said that would be a disconfirmation of evolution. So yeah, we should move away from missing link.
So one thing about the previous caller, not previous caller, maybe the second caller who talked about papyrus. So I'm just looking at Wikipedia here. The Roman Empire existed around 140, 150 BC. Mm-hmm. And the Egyptian Empire, who actually invented the papyrus, were maybe 3000, 3100 BC. So the Romans had papyrus longer than we have had Christianity. So to say that they didn't have paper is like, I don't know how you can say that they haven't had paper.
Right. No. Yeah. So the argument was that that they didn't have enough paper to Paper was scarce, but if there's a God, then why would there be any scarcity?
I don't think it was scarce because it was invented 3,000 years before the Romans.
Sure.
So
there's a very famous find that they've found. I don't know, 20 years ago. It's called the Archimedes palimpsest, and it's a book written by Archimedes that was unfortunately repurposed into a liturgy because they needed the paper and they scraped the ink off of the original because they didn't know what it meant, or they didn't understand its value, and it's just such a sad thing to have, maybe not an original work of Archimedes, but a very early copy of Archimedes, actually having invented calculus. Wow. 1,000 years before we think it was invented. It's just kind of sad that to have such a wonderful thing turned into the garbage of a liturgy. Anyway,
that's such a great analogy for the entire Dark Ages. Religion replacing science as being the primary importance.
Right.
It's kind of encapsulated in that one example.
That one example, right, is very powerful. Shafiq, anything else?
Well, that's all I had. Thank you very much, Don and John.
Thanks for
calling. I don't know if you
Thank you for calling.
The movie Don John. Right?
My earpiece seems to not be working. I'm not hearing anything.
Uh-oh.
So it's possible that he's talking away and I'm not hearing him.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying thank you very much for taking my call. I don't have anything further.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right.
But
let's queue up John from New York next.
You hearing anything now?
It comes and goes. So
sometimes you need to wiggle this a little bit.
We have some audio issues here and there. So hopefully we can figure that out soon.
Now I lost it.
Now you lost it, so I'm bumping you. Anyway, science. I think that Madeleine Murray O'Hare knew about that and was sort of saying, well, had we not had religion screwing things up, we could have been to the moon maybe 1,000 years earlier.
Yeah, it's kind of an intriguing idea.
It is.
If
How would things be different if we knew that?
yeah.
It seems like the practical value of mathematics really shows up in engineering, where we're trying to make things. And anyway.
Oh, let's see. Did you? Oh yeah, you said get John,
we're
John
waiting.
on the
We're
line.
waiting on another caller,
Okay.
and we can take a couple more calls before we wind down for today. I think Matt and Tracy and Russell are at a conference this weekend, or convention. Isn't that right?
Yeah, they are, and I'm trying to remember which one it is. Apostacon, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right. I think it's up in Dallas or Irving, maybe.
Somewhere in the Dallas area. so-
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I've seen some photos on Facebook and
Okay, so we can't get John. How about Jose from Lima? Wow. Peruvian.
oh, cool. I'll try that. Maybe he can be our last call if we can get a hold of him.
Yeah. So going to conventions is really a pretty awesome thing. If anybody in our audience has never been to a convention of any sort, please consider going. Going to the American Atheists or the Freedom from Religion Foundation or any of the humanist conventions and there's skeptical ones. There's the Amazing Meeting. There's all sorts of them now, and they really give you a big shot in the arm as far as your enthusiasm for atheism. You'll meet all sorts of interesting people. You'll make friends from
Yeah.
around the country. I've met some friends that I've gone to the convention again to see and reunite and improve the friendship and these sorts of things, and you'll hear some great speakers, and
It's kind of amazing because we're all kind of used to being in the minority in any gathering we're in, and to just be in one place with so many other non-believers is it's like a whole different experience. You
get to feel like you're in the majority,
Yeah.
and it's very comfortable, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Jose.
Hello,
Hello.
how are you?
Just fine. How are you?
I'm fine. First of all, I want to say that it's a pleasure to talk with you. I followed you 2 years ago. I hope you understand my very bad English. Well, I'm nervous today.
That's
Oh.
okay.
Well, I can see the show, but I can only hear you. But I hope I hope to see the show on YouTube. But my question is it possible to prove that something does not exist? I'd ask you this question because William Lane Craig said that is possible. He said, for example, we can prove that there's not living Tyrannosaurus Rex in the face of the earth. We can prove that there are no Muslims in the United States. I don't know if you understand me, but
Yeah.
I would like to know your opinion about it.
Okay.
You want to take that?
I think in general, you always hear it's impossible to prove a negative, and I can accept that there may be some counterexamples, but you could also say, well, all we can really say with certainty is that we haven't found any Tyrannosaurus rexes in the world. Somebody could come along and say, well, you haven't looked everywhere, so how do you know that for sure?
Right.
At what point does the absence of evidence become evidence of absence? And I guess that's arguable.
And if you expect to have evidence of something that isn't there, you can say that this is at least partial confirmation that the thing isn't there.
Yeah.
And so you can do some of that. And so, and this comes up with respect to atheism. It's like we're often put in the position of trying to prove that there is no God, and we're not necessarily the ones making that claim. And I think that you're better off making the claim that we don't believe in a God, we don't know of any evidence of a God, and until such evidence is provided, we're going to stay that the jury's still out, or we don't know, and we're going to choose to live our lives in such a way that God doesn't exist. And I think that way of dealing with the question has a lot of traction and works pretty well.
Yeah, to just say there's no reason for me to believe something until there's sufficient evidence for me to do so.
Okay.
Well,
I want to say that saludos para mi amigo Rodrigo Gutiérrez y thank you very much, guys.
Okay.
I don't know if Anna is still on air. I don't know.
Yeah, you are. I'm not sure what that meant, but
Thank you. Thank
okay.
you for that. Okay, thank you very much, guys. See
Thank you.
again.
Thank you. Well, why don't we wrap it up? Thank you for our callers. We're running a little long. I guess I wasn't paying attention to the time, having too much fun. So thank you for calling, and I think that Matt will be on next week. And come join us for dinner. We're going over to Threadgills right now, and hope to see you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.